Hello, my name is Frank Perez-Ortega, and this is my NIL project where I have chosen Louis Cafe. It's a little restaurant in Baton Rouge, and I have chosen that to be my business for the NIL project. So, without further ado, get into it. Excuse me. So, the brand, as I said, is Louis Cafe. It's a traditional fast casual restaurant in the Baton Rouge area. It's a very strong spot with the locals. I've been there. It's right by like some dorms by LSU and not too far away from the football stadium. And it's a very big staple of LSU. A lot of recruits go down through there whenever they're starting the recruiting process in LSU, and the coaches take them out there. And it's an old-timey diner with the traditional demographics that pass through uh, older residents of the Baton Rouge area as well as college students at the LSU area, as the food is relatively cheap. So the target audience is LSU's community, as I mentioned. It's alumni and students, as well as locals in the Baton Rouge area, and just people that are just passing through the Baton Rouge area. This is a really good stop for people to come through and have some breakfast or some brunch type stuff. And the goal of Louis Cafe definitely to me is to connect all demographics within the Baton Rouge area and just to connect them to the LSU brand, as Louis Cafe has practically converted itself to being not only something of the Baton Rouge area, but of the LSU school in itself, to where you can connect that feel of being at LSU to it. And I would definitely want to target the 18 to 24 demographic area in the Baton Rouge area to accomplish that goal. So the data landscape that I'm looking at, so in looking at all the data set, obviously what stood out to me the most was that TikTok by far was the highest rate of engagement amongst all athletes. You could really just take out any sort of athlete no matter what, and TikTok just outperformed all sorts of numbers, which really beat everything that I knew in going into this. I was assuming that Instagram was going to be the one that's going to be the one that's leading everything, as I see a lot of athletes with Instagram posts with NI as it relates to NIL and whatnot. But TikTok just blew away all other social media platforms. So in seeing this data, I want to be able to convert my data to being more branded on the TikTok experience, as the 18 to 24 demographic is primarily using TikTok over these other two, Instagram and Twitter, to be communicating on social media and to be able to promote businesses. And out of the pool of athletes that was taken, Jordan Thibodeau was the most well-rounded amongst all the social media platforms, and he obviously did the best when it came to um, just being a well-rounded presence amongst all the other athletes. And seeing that he is part of the football program that is a very big staple of the LSU culture. So I think that connecting the football fanatics to Louis Cafe, I think that there's just a perfect match, and it matches that traditional feel that LSU brings, and it identifies that brand pretty well as to what Louis Cafe and LSU have to offer. And so the brand decision is being able the brand decision again is just being able to connect with the demographic of 18 to 24, and I'll be focused on TikTok impressions amongst the most. And this is all from the NIL raw data set. So as I mentioned, Jordan Thibodeau is my athlete recommendation. He is a junior at LSU football, and he is a gold tier NIL status. So the preferred social media, as I mentioned, is TikTok. And to get down to the numbers, it's 8.58 average engagement rate, and that is 17% better than the average athlete and 3.11 percentage points better than the average athlete on TikTok. So when it comes to being on the best platform, he's outperforming the average athlete on there, and as well as the fact that he's just performing the average athlete amongst all platforms. So this is just a really good find, and what I averaged out to be his payout of the 650 is going to generate 657 per sponsored post, and I have the math right there pulled up for you. So that was the impressions times the 0.056 and then 0.08, which is the number given to us for the data set. And then the audiences ages 18 to 24 is my goal, and 40 to 4 and with an impressive number of 40.69 for the 18 to 24 demographic that he's reaching out to, which is absurd that like more about half of his audience is 18 to 64, which is something that I was looking to. And looking at all the other athletes, as he is 39.13. but I think he led all the other athletes when it came to that. Actually, he did lead the other athletes when it came to that. And Jordan was my pick really because football, as I mentioned, football is a very big tradition at LSU. But not only that, to be a junior and to be in the NIL gold status is perfect. Is that you can buy another year with that, and you can build some sort of a connection with Louis Cafe for at least 2 years before we have to look into another athlete that we want to expand to. And yeah, I think just it's a perfect match. And why this athlete over the others? So Darius was the other football player, and he was like right there neck and neck with Jordan. But and they both compete in football, which is something that I was looking at. And they have very similar numbers, like I mentioned. And Darius had even a better reach when it came to all the numbers combining for the 18 to 24 demographic. But Darius just didn't have, at the end of the day, Darius just didn't have the pull, the gravitational, the impressions and followers that I was looking for, as I was looking to promote to a bigger audience rather than just like a smaller collection of the audience and better numbers. So I think if you get more people talking about your brand, that inherently brings in more people rather than just having just slightly more impressions and not as much say on the word. So he doesn't have as high of a TikTok following on as Jordan does, and that's what really got me is like I want the highest performing athlete on the highest impressions on a platform. And that was Jordan Thibodeau, according to the based on the numbers that I was seeing. So as you can see right here, you have all the numbers put up. I think yeah, Jordan and Darius were literally my weighted score of fives. I think that they had great. It perfectly aligned with what I was trying to do. But at the end of the day, Jordan just had the highest pool of the 18 to 24 graphic on TikTok, and which is the highest performing brand. So that's what I was looking forward to. Seasonal training. So looking at the numbers from the trends throughout the year, the best 2 months of engagement for Jordan are in January and December. So this is about the time that it gets to about the bowl games and football or just the playoffs. So LSU is a playoff hopeful every year in and year out. So as you get more eyes on LSU, you can get more eyes on Louis Cafe. And this is also like a dry time on campus where like there's less people on campus as everybody's doing their finals and everybody's trying to get out. But I think whenever you use that time that they're getting in all this media, all this everything like that he brings attention to Louis Cafe. And so people are thinking about it as soon as they come back on campus in January and February and want to try that place out. So I think that was the best. It definitely aligned with the best time of the year to be able to promote them, as this is just like the playoffs and more eyes are on them rather than just like the LSU student body, but rather more of a national brand, national stage. So as good as the LSU football team does, which is probably the most watched team on campus. So to be able to pair that in with the playoffs and everything like that, and be able to do a partnership around that time period, it would be very huge for the brand. And TikTok peaks at 10.43, while Instagram tops out at 6.66 engagement rate, which is kind of crazy to think about. That on Instagram they just almost have half of the engagement rate that they do, and they tops out around like August, which is whenever most people are coming onto campus. They're getting to know the place. So this is around like the fall camp area where there's not quite any games starting, but everybody's starting to get to know each other. And people are like, oh, like how's the LSU football team shaping up? And looking at the roster and seeing all that stuff. So it's not a terrible place to be at a start, but in terms of the highest performing months, I'm really looking more forward to the January and December time, as you see the numbers posted right there, where it's at 10%. Um, August is also another point where it's just 10%, but it just doesn't have the consistency that January and December do. And so, as you can see, as I mentioned, yeah, peak months of January of 1.33 and higher than average, 1.33 higher than average in December and 1.03 in January. So he's just outperforming the average year in and year out. And I think that has a lot to do with the brand and what his performance does in the field. And I think that the impressions that he provides, and I think that'll do wonders for Louis Cafe. So the campaign timing and budget, as I mentioned, as I alluded to, we're going to try to do something within December and January to where whenever he has the most eyes on him. And so you have the number of 762.02. with the 4 months added on top of it and the four posts a month and then 2 months. And so that will lead to about 6,096 for the estimated total impressions. And he's as you can that's the 84,393 average impressions per month. If we can get to around that average and have just the 8 posts, that'll mean that he's seeing that almost 1.5 million people are seeing our brand and within the year, which it's a huge number to have, and to be able to connect to that many people is definitely going to grow Louis Cafe to being so much more than having just the Baton Rouge brand, the Baton Rouge stand, but like a national brand to where I could look at expansion beyond college beyond the college campus and looking more to being able to go to different states and going into different parts of the nation. Yeah, going to different parts of the states. And as you can see, numbers again, August and December have the most spike, which these are the turning points within the season. That's like the high, that's like the August is whenever we're starting out, December when we're finishing up college football. So you're seeing all the different impressions of people coming in, and they see the attention and the impressions kind of thins out towards as the season progresses, which is a very odd trend, but shoots right back up whenever the time gets important for the LSU football team to perform. And how we measure success, so the primary KPI. I think that the most realistic standard that we could offer to Jordan was to look at a target of having 200,000 impressions per month based on his performance. I think that's a pretty realistic goal, given that he averages around 884,000 going into this. So his numbers are only going to be going up from here. So if we can just reach just a little bit more on 200,000 impressions per month, I think we can do a lot for our brand. So we have a 30-day window plan where it's the average monthly impressions versus the 200,000 target. And then finding the strongest in performing content on TikTok. So finding trends and things that are get are connecting with the youth, and monitor what's been driving the engagement with the posts. So looking at what's been working and what hasn't been working whenever Jordan posts, I think is a very strong thing that we've been be looking at as to seeing like how to grow the brand. And the six and to adjust the content based on that's put out based in case of a dip of an impression. So try to make it more relatable, make it funnier, things of that nature. 60-day window, so we're looking at the impressions that he accumulated, and then looking at the growth from a monthly standpoint. So we're like actually mapping out like the trends about like, hey, like we're in the middle of the football season, say that there's a dip in September, how can we get it back to October? Say we do more things that are like more branded towards like the holidays, branded towards like the games that we got coming up that day, like hey, we got Alabama this month or we got A&M this month. So we want to like um do something in Louis Cafe where it's like, oh, like a little trend where it's like, oh, we can make like the pancakes in the shape of the opponent. And just looking at the lens across all platforms. So we're not just looking at just TikTok. We want to look at all platforms, as I think that looking at all platforms grows as just beyond that demographic that I'm looking at. So I think in growing the 18 to 24 demographic, you're going to be growing the as this demographic gets older, it's going to be growing the numbers even more, and you're going to be having future customers for life as they're going to have that feeling of tradition and being able to relate to Louis Cafe and being able to recognize as the spot that they went to whenever they were on campus. And then so the ask is obtaining a 2 month NIL contract with Jordan that aims to get 200,000 impressions per month on TikTok by making 4 sponsored posts per month with an investment of $6,096.16 that aim to grow impressions by 15%. So I think this is a pretty realistic goal considering the numbers that Jordan does and the impressions that he's able to cause. And at his numbers, it's just they just keep growing throughout the football season. So just to attack that peak time of the year in January and December, and then we will be able to bring as much impressions to our brand as possible. So risk considerations that go into this. So looking at this, Jordan could transfer. He could go professional in his junior year. By that, that is an option where if he does well enough on the field, he could leave us and leave our brand um with a hole and having to be filled out. He could sit out the year. He could and people won't be as like attached to his brand where it's like, oh, like Jordan isn't that the guy that he's sitting out the year because he's ready for the NFL draft and he's not really caring about the LSU brand. So we could take a hit in our reputation if we sponsor him. And during that time period where it's like people, the public could have a negative opinion of him, he could be injured again, so he doesn't have that visibility that brings in the impressions. So that's just something that is beyond our control, and this is just something that could affect us. Say that it does happen, and it won't be that good of a look if he's going to be injured while he's doing these promotions and scandals. So we could have like issues where we're seeing in college sports now where kids are having issues with betting or kids with are having issues with behavioral issues with cars like they do in Georgia. So that's a risk that you take often a lot with these athletes, especially college athletes, where it's like they're just trying to figure out how to market themselves, trying to put their brand out, and we just hope that they're able to control themselves as young adults and to put out the best content that's both relatable and being professional at the same time. So this is just the risk that we have to go through in those whenever we're looking at being able to create a possible like bigger impressions within that 18 to 24 demographic. And that is all I have for you all. That for you. I hope that you all enjoy my presentation, and you have a great day. Go Tigers.